Metroid is one of Nintendo's most loved franchises. Even though releases are few and far between, it's dark, moody, and groundbreaking. An entire game genre called Metroidvania is based around its playstyle. Even Castlevania, which makes up the latter half of the name, took inspiration and changed its playstyle to be in line with Metroid. It stands as a testament to just how great these games are. There are only 4 games in the series. The original game, simply titled Metroid, which was followed up by Metroid 2: The Return of Samus. Super Metroid is the 3rd game, and it's on the Super Nintendo, which has gone on to gain legendary status. And finally, the 4th and most recent game, Metroid Fusion. The Metroid Prime games aren't included here, as they're their own thing. We'll get to those at a different time. These games chronicle the missions of Samus Aran, who, as a character, really broke boundaries as the protagonist of a game franchise. I won't go into why just yet, but I'm sure you already know what I'm talking about. We were lucky to have the chance to follow Samus for 16 years, from 1986 to 2002. But after this, the Metroid games moved into 3D space and the storyline went cold. After nearly 20 years without a follow-up to Metroid Fusion, there wasn't much hope that we'd get one. That is, until a Nintendo Direct in June of 2021. Nintendo announced that a new 2D Metroid game would be released later in the year. They introduced it as Metroid 5. Finally continuing the beloved series. Its formal title is Metroid Dread. Metroid Fusion released 19 years before this announcement, making this span of time longer than when the original Metroid came out and Fusion's release. It's really quite significant, and the response has been astounding. The buzz surrounding the Metroid series has gone through the roof. Metroid games have become valuable, which has increased prices significantly. This is due to people wanting to play through all the games before Dread arrives. This eagerness to play all the games in the series has created a dilemma. How should you play them, and in what order? Metroid game releases are a little complicated. You see, during the massive gap between Metroid Fusion and Metroid Dread, Nintendo remade the first 2 games. Metroid was remade into Metroid Zero Mission for the Game Boy Advance. Metroid 2: The Return of Samus on the Game Boy was remade in 2017 titled Metroid: Samus Returns for the 3DS. These remakes refined and added everything that made the original games a chore to play. Simple things like adding maps, more responsive controls, and new abilities. New moves like grabbing onto ledges and the melee counterattacks in Samus Returns were added and upgraded these games significantly. These counterattack moves changed the Return of Samus completely. With this in mind, the question is, do you play the original games and experience the series as it was played when they initially rolled out? Or do you start with Zero Mission and Samus Returns in place of the first 2 games? I recently came down with the itch to play all the 2D Metroid games in order, so I could hop right into Dread knowing the whole story. Did I want to start with the original games? Or could I play the remakes and still get the whole Metroid experience? To be fair, I've started all these games multiple times, which gave me a small leg up on the gameplay. Though, I didn't ever make it all that far. As it turns out, I'm not really a fan of getting lost and backtracking, which happens to be part of what Metroid is. That's just the nature of what these games are. But it's really bad in the first 2 games. As amazing as the original Metroid was back in the mid-80s, it really hasn't aged all that well. The music is amazing, and the atmosphere really gives you that alone feeling. But the controls and the lack of a map really brings this game down. These controls are tough to get used to. To think that Super Mario Bros. 3 is on the same console as Metroid is really eye-opening. Nintendo nailed the controls on Mario 3. With Metroid, they bent the nail. Samus is very floaty. It makes precise platforming incredibly difficult. Don't get me wrong, the controls aren't impossible to conquer, they just take some getting used to. This game is a classic that kicked off one of the most beloved Nintendo franchises. It's very playable, it just takes some time to get used to it. The biggest thing that really drags this game down is the absence of a map. Not having a map to help navigate this labyrinth is a deal breaker. It's impossible to not get lost. Some of these areas look exactly the same. You truly don't know where you are in the world. The lack of a map also drags down Metroid 2. It's one of the most ambitious games ever to come out on the Game Boy. But like the NES game, you don't know where you are in the game world. It takes actual work to play these games because you have to have a remarkable memory or draw a map for yourself. The controls feel how you would expect a Metroid game to be on the original Game Boy. Stiff and a little clunky. Though again, not impossible. I love the Game Boy, and these controls are part of the charm. Having tried these games when they were relevant, it's no surprise to me that Nintendo remade them. Having gone back to them recently, I'm glad they remade them. I decided to play through these games in their original release order. I presume playing them like this would give me a deeper appreciation for the series as a whole. Then I would play the 2 remakes after. That was a giant understatement, because I've learned that playing the first 2 Metroid games aren't all that fun. The first game is especially difficult to play through. Again, it has great music and atmosphere, and this game's ideas are excellent. But if you aren't nostalgic for it, it's not all that fun to play through today. We've been spoiled with great games for years that offer everything you need to get through them while you're also having fun. The lack of a map and similar sections that are totally different areas makes this game extremely difficult to play today. I decided to put this one down and play Zero Mission. Zero Mission fixes everything. First of all, it's beautiful. The first game looks quite drab in comparison. The controls have been overhauled and feel amazing. The biggest upgrade is the included in-game map. Zero Mission is fantastic and completely replaces the original. I'm glad I played it first because it made me excited to play the other games in the series, which made my next choice quite difficult. Do I play Metroid 2 on the Game Boy or on the 3DS? I decided to give Metroid 2 on the Game Boy a shot. After all, I love the Game Boy, and I could always start a 3DS game just like I did with Zero Mission, which is exactly what I did. I know that for the time, this game was a marvel. I know because I had it. I used to fumble my way through it and not really know where I was going. I liked it better than the original Metroid, but it just isn't all that great compared to the modern releases. I played Samus Returns on the 3DS. I pre-ordered this game in 2017 and played about half of it. At this time, the Switch had been out for a few months, and I was still playing through Breath of the Wild. Coming back to it after playing Zero Mission was amazing. The new melee counterattacks are something I found myself really liking. At first, they were kinda clunky, but I soon changed my mind. They feel natural, and I missed them while I was playing Super Metroid. Samus Returns is a longer game than the original, but it's absolutely worth it. Again, I want to reiterate that the original versions of these games aren't bad. They are definitely playable if you have the time and patience. I'm not in that phase of life anymore. I can see myself revisiting them later when I'm not trying to pound through 4 games in a small amount of time. If you like them and you have the time, I say give them an honest playthrough. Maybe your opinion will differ from mine. With the massive attention and excitement surrounding the series, prices for these games have gone up considerably. In my opinion, maybe a ridiculous amount. Used Game Boy Advance games selling for over $100 is eye-opening. But this is where we are now. If you want to pick up an authentic Metroid Zero Mission, you'll be paying quite a bit for it. That also goes for Metroid Fusion. These Game Boy Advance games are great, and they look amazing, but it's hard justifying hundreds of dollars on the secondary market for old copies of these games. I have both of them, but I bought them years ago when prices were low. The much easier and way more affordable way to play them is on the Wii U. In fact, the Wii U might be the single most important console there is to play the Metroid series. And I still see Wii U's for sale at very reasonable prices. On the Wii U, you can get the original Metroid, the remake, Metroid Zero Mission, Super Metroid, Metroid Fusion, and the Metroid Prime trilogy. To get caught up on the series, the Wii U offers 3 of the 4 games to do it. Game Boy Advance and Super Nintendo games look and play fantastic on the Wii U. The game the Wii U lacks, Metroid 2, is on the 3DS, both versions of it. You can download Return of Samus on the Virtual Console, or buy the Samus Returns cartridge that was made specifically for the 3DS. If you only want a taste of the Metroid series before Dread comes out, the Switch's online service has the original Metroid, along with an enhanced version that gives you a head start. It also has Super Metroid. So if this is all you have to play, it's a great option to play these 2 games. Now, I know you can emulate these games, and if that's the way you want to play them, that's great. These games and consoles are expensive, and I know not everybody has the means to get all this. So if this is your only option, then that's your only option. I do what I can to stick to official releases and offerings. I always recommend that you do the same if you can. I recommend playing these games in this order: Metroid Zero Mission, Metroid Samus Returns, Super Metroid, and finally Metroid Fusion. Why not play the more modern updated versions of the two original titles? I think more people will like the Metroid series starting with Zero Mission and Samus Returns. This order will give you the most up-to-date games in the series. Metroid is one of Nintendo's most loved franchises, even though releases are few and far between. The more people that like, play, and buy these games, it's more likely that Nintendo will provide more of these games to play. There are only 5 games in this legendary series. Let's hope we get a few more.